Climate change is happening. It's the greatest challenge facing the world today.
Climate change is an evolution in the climate that was unexpected for and is due to greenhouse gases emissions. Climate change is one of the most important environmental challenges of the 21st century. It is already actually affecting communities and ecosystems and nature.
Nature is bearing the brunt of our excesses, and now we have to endure those consequences in violent upheavals of our climate. The effects of climate change are having a real impact on millions of people around the world. The most vulnerable are the first in line to suffer the consequences of our changing climate. Their livelihoods, their economic viability, as well as their safety, are all in jeopardy. The poorest communities emit the least global carbon emissions, yet they are the ones who pay the highest price.
IUCN places significant emphasis on making sure that its interventions are differentiated according to the needs of groups such as women, youth and Indigenous people. If we design our actions to meet the way they use natural resources, then we're guaranteed better sustainable outcomes.
It's nature that we now have to turn to rely on to be our ally, by restoring our ecosystems and ensuring a brighter future for the generations to come.
Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation.
We have to understand the cost effectiveness of one or the other. We have to understand the ability for a country to afford natural infrastructure versus engineered infrastructure. And we have to understand what's best to reduce the vulnerability of people rather than advocating one or the other.
Nature-based solutions are taking our knowledge of ecosystems and species and how natural systems work, taking our knowledge of how good decisions are made about natural resource management and conservation, how one can make good and fair and equitable decisions about how resources are used, and applying them to major global challenges such as food security and climate change, where biodiversity is not the central issue, but where biodiversity can offer a significant part of the solution.
Nature's resilience and inherent robustness must be used to strengthen our ecosystems. The management of rivers, coastal ecosystems, coral reefs, mangroves and forests, and dry land systems will not only help sequester carbon, but will protect communities from landslides and flooding. Working with governments at national and local levels, IUCN is negotiating for the integration of REDD, reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, into the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, to implement policies to reduce levels of CO2. This initiative implicates and encourages people at every level by providing incentives to preserve and manage forests.
We estimate that if we could restore 150 million hectares of degraded forest and agroforest land over the next 10 years, that's double the current rate of forest restoration at the minute, that we would be able to close the emissions gap by 10 to 20%. You're missing a trick if we don't use and deploy natural systems to actually help you reach your solution.
Nature Plus is nature-based solutions to climate change.